Hello, everybody, and welcome in. Today, I decided I was going to do a guide on Tim Talks Podcasting. This is episode number 10. And usually, the podcasts go better when I sort of keep them with one topic, keep them concise, know what I'm doing, because sometimes I go off the rails a little bit. So today, I try to keep it simple, keep it on the point-ish. So I'm going to be talking about something really interesting, which is geography in the world around me. And yeah, I said, why not? Why the hell not do a little guide to Dublin sort of transport links and places? So I decided, I'll go along the main routes of transport that are present. I might just cover one or two and just, say, this place is like, some just interesting things about the place. So currently, hold on. Why is that not popping up, my podcast on Spotify? This is weird. Either way, I'm going to just check Anchor, which is the hosting place I use for Spotify, just to make sure it's all still up and running. Episodes number 9. So this is number 10. Woohoo! Number 10. Sorry, not in the best mood, so I'll have to excuse me there. But anyways, let's get on with it. So let's get into our first mode of transport, which is one I use most often, which is called the DART. It's the Dublin Area Rapid Transit. And what it does is it's basically a sort of more commuter suburban train, which brings people from around the Dublin area into the centre of Dublin, Dublin, of course, being a city capital of Ireland. So, yeah, the DART was set up about 20 years ago, and since then has been sort of a major thing in the area, covering 31 stations, stretching from the south from Greystones all the way up to Malahide/Howth. But basically, what it does is there's literally one line, but it splits off at the Howth Junction, as it's called, heading here to Malahide or Howth. So, yeah, I would say, that's basically it. There's main categories, which is south of Dunleary, then there's south of River Levy, south of Howth Junction, north of Howth Junction, northeast. So we're going to start with very south and then work our way up. So, yeah, exactly what we're going to do. So, the first stop we look at is Greystones. Greystones is a very nice place. It's where I'm from. Please don't stop me, but it's where I'm from. And yeah, it's a really idyllic place would be the word I would use to describe it. Great connections, bus route connections, ish, and overall pretty good station. Apart from the fact that a lot of times if you're trying to get from say Bray to Greystones, a lot of times that service will either run into issues due to the fact of its location being in a cliff, which means the line runs through a cliff from one place to the other, making it quite difficult at times to complete. So it's quite an interesting station from that perspective. And yeah, honestly, really nice spot, right by the beach, as you see it when you're coming in. Greystones itself, a 20,000+ population place. So overall, it's quite a dense spot and quite a good spot. So yeah, that's the first stop. Stop number 2 is Bray. Bray is an even bigger version of Greystones. I'll get to specifics on how many people live here. 32,000 people, making the 9th biggest town in Ireland. Something else to note about Bray is it has like these mosaics along the one side of the track, which are quite interesting. Murals, they call them, which are made with little stone. So I like them a lot. Overall, though, it's quite a busy station. You get services running every 20-30 minutes, just like Greystones, which is actually more frequent. Due to its location, it's more of a hub for the south of the DART than Greystones is. A lot of our trains get started here, I believe. And overall, it's quite a reliable service because, yeah, you'll be getting pretty regular service out here-ish. And, yeah, Bray itself is an interesting place. It's got a nice vibe along the seafront. Lots of nice restaurant shops, etc. And, yeah, it's an interesting mix in Bray, so you get the good and you get the bad. So moving on, we need to talk about the next stop, because Bray, obviously, very familiar with both Greystones and Bray. Shankill. Shankill is, I would classify it more as a suburb than a little town itself, but there is a town area to it. 14,000 people live here. Very much, I believe, a product of the entire, commuter increase in the Dublin area, and the Dart has probably helped big time. If you look at a picture of the station, it's quite an unremarkable looking station, pretty industrial looking, quite a lot of ramping, just to obviously for necessary for people with wheelchairs. And yeah, it's quite in a car park, quite in a weird zone, because I went there once before and I actually found it's about 10-15 minutes from from the centre of Shankill. So it's a bit of an odd one. Nice big church in Shankill, which is something to note. Overall, 14,000 people live in Shankill, as I've noted. And the St. James Church, as it's called, really nice church. Probably the best part about Shankill. So, moving on to our next stop, it is Killiney, the lovely Killiney. Killiney is notable for its one of the stations that has a lovely glass bridge, and it's sort of very nice and picturesque. And Killiney is a very unpopulated area. If we look at population statistics here, 10,000 people, so it's quite middle of the road. I wouldn't say too unpopulated, but it's quite middle of the road. The entire area has this lovely beach, one of the best beaches going, kind of stretches, and just a very picturesque view of the cliffs and Docky area. Love some nice houses here, a few apartments, and a place called the Vico Baths, which is a really nice spot for swimming. Similar to Greystones, I suppose, in a way. So that's Killiney for you. Nice, picturesque. Next up, we have Docky. Docky being famous for where Matt Damon stayed during the lockdown in the first one in Ireland. Obviously, at that point, stuff was interesting because, transport was very limited out of the country. So it was an interesting area, but a very nice area, very well-to-do area in Docky. A lovely little village with a medieval things going on called Castle Street. And honestly, never been into the main village, but it seems like a very nice spot. A couple of schools here. Population of 8,000, so very unpopulated, very, very rich, and very historical in its own way. So it's just obviously back in when Dublin was a lot smaller, the centre of Dublin was a lot further away. This was a small little village on its own, and it's funny how now it's become pretty much incorporated into the Dublin area. So that's something interesting to note. Docky. Also, these are incredible, really, and you can see around the entire bay, so it's nice. Next on our list is Glenageary. Glenageary is another very unremarkable station, similar to Shankill. It's quite just hidden away into the sort of hills nearly. If I look up Glenageary, there isn't really a town called Glenageary, even though the word translates to Glen the Sheep. So it's an interesting one there for you. Also, if you wanted to know the sort of the history of the names of the other places we looked at so far, Bray is called Bray Daly because of the relationship with one of the, I believe. Do you know what? Let's get off the topic here. Let's stay on Glenageary. I'm just gonna get caught up in all names and stuff. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, Glenageary isn't really a town itself. It's made up of other places such as surrounding areas. So it's no official boundaries. It's Docky, Dunleary, Glasshool, Johnstown, Killiney, and Sallynoggin. So it makes up these like sort of little village / suburbs, mainly estates and stuff. And so it's sort of a catchment area for different areas, but itself is not really an area itself. So that's a weird way to look at it. But hey, that's what it is. So that there's nothing to say about Glenageary, obviously based on the fact that it doesn't really exist. So next up on our list is numbers, Sandy Cove and Glasshool. Sandy Cove and Glasshool is a suburban area for Sandy Cove and Glasshool. So Sandy Cove is the area on the coast, Glasshool is inland. And basically it's just before you get to Dunleary. I believe there's a nice little beach here as well. And Glasshool. Only 2,000 people live here. It also featured in a novel by James Joyce called Ulysses. And also we have Sandy Cove, which is the beautiful beaches, and kind of the main draw of the area is the 40 foot, which is a bathing spot. So 3,700 people live here, quite an unpopulated area, but again, pretty remarkably touristy area, I would say. Next up we have Dunleary, which is the main hub of the South Dublin area, which is because it's basically got its own administrative region named after it. It's called the Dunleary Ratdown area. Dunleary is a fairly moderately sized town with 26,000 people. I thought that was a bit higher, but due to its sort of importance on a administrative level, it does have a few big notable buildings, such as a couple of like sort of cathedral type churches, quite small cathedrals, I would say. Don't even know if you classify them as cathedrals. And it does also has a very big library. Modern library was built on a big pier. And the historical context is that this place used to be called Kingstown in honor of King George IV in 1821. After he made his visit, and a very popular seaside resort, hosting Ireland's first railway, which stretched, I think, from Dublin to Dunleary. So I mean that sort of, halfway home between Dublin and Dunleary, and the end of the line for Dart. So honestly, I think it's quite a nice place. Always bustling on the weekends. It's always got a good vibes in it. So I really like Dunleary, and I think the only problem I would say with Dunleary is it could be quite busy at times due to its touristy nature. So yeah, now we're moving on to the south of a few lines. There's actually quite a few to get through here. So first up, we are going to look at Salt Hill and Monkstown. Another one where it's "and" in the name. I don't know why they do this. I think they should just name it one place or another, because it's not in two places. It's in one specific place. I don't understand that at all. Just name it. Surely just name it one place. Another sort of historical place that has had roots in, I suppose, Victorian times. People needing rich people needing to get to and from Dublin, I suppose. And yeah, so I suppose Salt Hill is there on the coast, and Monkstown is inland. Monkstown probably be a bit more famous. Monkstown would be 6,000 people, and it's just a really historical area, I think. And it's kind of it's got a few like old castle-y ruins, whilst Salt Hill is just a prom, as you'd call it, by the sea. Doesn't seem to be a beach here, more such a sort of rocky coastal part, and then like a actual wall leading down. So it's not the nicest in terms of bathing. It'd be more for just walking along and having a look at the sea. So yeah, this is sort of the beginning of like getting into Dublin, but still near Dunleary. And yeah, there wouldn't be too much else to say about this place. It is what it is, as they say. So I'm gonna move on. Next up, we have Sea Point, which I believe is the least busy station in Dublin. I want to say maybe even in Ireland, probably not in Ireland, but definitely in the Dublin Dart area. Least used Dart station. Sea Point itself is a small seafront area between Blackrock and Monkstown, so it's not really either one, and it doesn't seem to have much to it apart from this little area for launching boats, for possibly swimming. So it's really what's the word? I just think it's pretty much a pointless station, but I guess they just decided we need another station here and we'll add this in. So honestly, I don't know why this exists, but it exists nonetheless. One thing to note about this station is it's very, very close to the sea. So what you have obviously in the name, Sea Point. So you have, say, if you're going by and there's a storm, you might actually have waves lapping up, and the odd time it might flood. So that could lead to stoppages. Next up, we have Blackrock. Blackrock is obviously pretty, I suppose, for an Irish person anyway, a pretty famous spot, due to its basically to its wealth and its sort of stereotypes, I suppose, sort of a South Dublin person, this is your main your main archetype location, and it's a fairly one of the biggest. It is fun fact. This is actually bigger than Dún Laoghaire, which I never knew. 28,000 people. I think Dún Laoghaire only 26,000 people. One thing about Blackrock is it's a pretty nice old village, quite traditional, quite quirky, but it also has a lot of industry. It has hospitals, big hospitals, etc. And yeah, so it's an interesting place because it's an old part and there's a new part, and the new part is definitely building up. In the shopping centre here, I think there's a stopping Frascati, I want to say, is near here. So it's catering to a lot of people. So I believe it's a pretty major place. The station is positioned in quite a weird spot. It's got a nice view of the sea, lovely little bathing area, but then it's also sort of in this very dodgy looking car park, but quite close to the town centre. Blackrock is great. What was I going to say? Yeah, so it's fairly okay, nice looking bridge in this area. So I would definitely rate this as a nice spot. Moving on to our next one. I think we're about halfway here. We have Booterstown. Booterstown is just past Blackrock. It's technically within the Blackrock boundaries, but it features a Booterstown marsh, which is very smelly due to its being a sort of a historical, would you call it a wildlife sanctuary, I believe would be the word, due to its sort of, it's in this, it's very odd because it's in this sort of built up area, but it's been preserved and said no building will take place here, and all these little sort of animals and stuff can live here. And basically it is sort of connected to the sea, I believe, but not at the same time. So it's, I don't know if it'd be fresh or salty, probably a mixture. And yeah, it's always got a mad stank of it, but it's a really nice view because past the sanctuary from the station you can see on to the sort of main town, which is sort of like a road leading off from Blackrock. So it's also a nice little village centre. So it's one of my favourite stops, but also one of the smelliest. But in terms of looks, it's a great stop. It's also got a similar Blackrock themed, these glass bridges that go over, that a lot of these sort of well-to-do stations have, which is quite a fun indication of like, oh, these people are doing well off. So anyways, that's Booterstown. Next up we have Sydney Parade. This is where you're sort of the signal of you're basically nearly in Dublin at this stage. It's in D4 itself, which is the hub of sort of South Dublin stereotypes. This area of D4, by the way, extends from Baggot Street all the way to Rings End, Irishtown, Donnybrook, Ballsbridge. So it features all those sort of built up areas and the south side as well as Sandymount. So it's just a really upper class, middle class area. And yeah, it's a funny place to take the piss out of, basically. But yeah, Sydney Parade, right in the centre of all this. It features Sydney Parade Avenue, which is a very busy place. I believe we are talking about St. Vincent's Hospital is also here. We have Donnybrook, we have D4. Named after Sidney Herbert, who was the first Baron of Lee in this area, which I never knew. Sidney spelled as S-I-D. So he was also a confidant of Florence Nightingale, which is a really cool fact. And a British lad, I want to say. Yeah, he was a British lad. So I really think that's an interesting fact to know. So a lot of posh buildings here, a lot of built up spots. And overall, I would say quite a nice place. Next up we have Sandymount. Sandymount is like you're really nearly in Dublin at this stage. You're nearly there. Sandymount, again, another nice posh spot even. And it is obviously the town of Sandymount, which isn't really a town, it's a suburb. A lot of these places are hard to distinguish. So like this, for instance, this Wikipedia page for Sandymount doesn't really feature an article, more of just like, oh, this is the general area of Sandymount, so there's no population given. But again, it's got a lot of historical significance. You get the baths, the beach. A lot of times this place is actually quite... Basically, this beach is sort of mostly very far out, so you might get like shallow water or whatever, and you might be miles away from the sea pretty much. So it's obviously that's the beach and that's about it. Sandymount, not much else to claim for this place. Another boring sort of, are we in Dublin yet, sort of places, also within D4. Next up we have Lansdowne Road. Lansdowne Road is famous for basically being the hub of sort of Irish football and also Irish rugby. And it's been so for many years. It's a very famous Lansdowne Historical Stadium, which recently got turned into Aviva Stadium about 10 years ago. And It's impressive enough because you can actually go under one of these stands. So, yeah, I really like that fact. It was an interesting choice to do that, obviously, but it does mean it's very close to the stadium, so it's very handy for getting to matches because I can go straight on there and you're there. There's no like, oh shit, we're nearly at the stadium. You're there, so it's great. If you actually look at the recent renovations in 2009, you can see it's actually, I wouldn't say the stadium covers it now, but it's actually a bridge connecting to the stadium. So obviously this area is going to be popular at peak times during matches and stuff, and you know, that's predominantly it, but it's also just a busy station in general, just being to its proximity to Dublin. Next up we have Grand Canal Dock. Grand Canal Dock is a major industry for tech companies, Google, eBay, etc. So it's very much important because you go through these sort of high-rise. It's the first, not high-rise, for Dublin standards high-rise, but it's actually not really that. It's like 5 or 6, maybe 8 if you're lucky, stories tall. So these are the tallest buildings, I believe, in Dublin. Due to industry, tech companies, etc. If you're looking at Silicon Valley, this would be the Silicon Valley area of Dublin. Inverted commas, Grand Canal is obviously a very booming, up-and-coming place. Lots of controversy around the water park, the proposed water park they're going to build in this area. And also quite a nice area to look at because it's so modern. It's very nice canal, and it's also just a decent, it's seemingly a decent area. It doesn't have a lot of soul though. Sometimes when you walk through, like, you know, there's a very industrialized, it's more, I would compare it to say like the City of London, but like very similar in that it's sort of all, you know, these big companies and very what's the word? Not commercialized. I'm trying to think of the word. Not commercialized. Corporate is what the word I would use to describe this place. Corporate. Right. Next up we have Pierce. Pierce is pretty much the hub of like South Dublin's train services. Because it's right in the city. D2, Dublin 2, which is incredibly, you know, popular area in Dublin, being, you know, where most of the stuff happens. Like, you got Trinity College, you got Grafton Street, etc. So this is a really, really nice station, probably one of the best stations I've ever seen. It's got this really nice arch going overhead, and what else is there to say about it, really? A lovely spot in Dublin where you get out on, and you get out and you're like, wow, I'm in Dublin, lads. I'm here. So I really like it. It's got a lot of historical significance, and it's a really nice spot. So it's basically in the Westland Row area of Dublin. It connects straight into, just up a bit, and you're basically in the centre of Dublin. So it's a very good place in terms of proximity. And yeah, 9 million passenger journeys through the station in 2016. So that just shows you this place is bustling, hustling and bustling. And 2019 they got a new roof built. So cool. So obviously it's been around for years, I want to say. And also one thing about it is there's pianos in here. You can play the pianos. So that's kind of cool. I rate it. Next up we have Tara Street. Tara Street is a lot less cool than Pierce, being the fact that it's very open. And it's basically, it's right by the Liffey on the south side. So it's quite busy. But it doesn't seem to have the capacity, in my opinion, due to its sort of small platform, long platform, but very sort of thin and lacking in roof, really. Lacking in roof would be one thing to say. So you could be here in very sort of, what's the word, busy sort of, say there was like, I don't know, rush hour, you're going to have a lot of rough, and you're also weather, bad weather, you'd be screwed. But anyway, it doesn't have a nice spot when you get outside because you got this river looking over, and yeah, it's a fairly busy spot. And that's all I gotta say. Lovely bridge, by the way, just over the River Liffey, which is called the Loop Line Bridge, which I quite like. Right. So now we've covered all the South Dublin area, side of River Liffey. Now it's time to move on to the north side. So there's not that many stations on the north side, by the way. I think that's because mostly, well, for the most part, there's a lot more space maybe on the south, and also I think in general that Dart is very much sort of south side centric train. So when we get to the north side, I'm going to be a lot less familiar with these stations, a lot less use on these stations due to where, you know, I live, or whatever. so I will probably, have a lot less to say, but hopefully, you still get something out of it anyways. So Connolly is, I would say, the biggest station. Yeah, by far the biggest station on the Dart line. It's basically a Irish rail, which is covering, internal into Ireland. So what this does is you go all the way to Belfast from here. So it's basically the north-centric train station for Ireland. So it brings you up to Belfast. You can go all the way up there. Houston would be the sort of westerly centric, and I guess Pearse would be the south centric. But yeah, this one's quite big. Noted for the fact that it's got basically two separate area platforms. It's got one mainly for the darts and then one mainly for trains. So it's quite overwhelming at times, but again, it's pretty simple. You just go to one side or the other, and it's actually got like 3 different platforms. It's got lots of platforms, by the way. There's a few homeless people around the escalator area here. There's actually an external escalator, which is quite weird. And also, it's probably noted for not being the safest spot in the world due to its proximity to North Dublin. Being North Dublin's, it's sometimes a little bit dodgier than South Dublin at certain spots, I would say. But yeah, it's the busiest railway in Ireland. I didn't know that. And it's also the focal point of Ireland's rail. So it's quite a nice external look, but also it's kind of merged with the ancient, the historical, and also the modern. So I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite stations, but I have to respect how it sort of has a very important quality to it in terms of importance. So internally, it's got a sort of triangular roof. It's also got some kind of ugly stuff underneath it, like an ugly steel frame. But look, we've seen worse. Next up, we have Clontarf Road. Clontarf Road is in D3, and it's a railway in Ireland. And it's on the Dublin's north side. It's between Clontarf and Fairview. Clontarf being placed with 32,000 people, quite a nice area, quite a wealthy area, with lacking a beach, but it does have historical, churches and stuff like that. Castle. There was a battle that occurred here, and also it's got some rocky outlets to it. This station, not much to say. I've actually never been to this station before. Any of these stations north of here haven't been. I honestly want to, but at this stage I haven't been to yet. That's the key word there, yet. So, yeah, I would say, very kind of new industrial. Not much to say about it. Moving on, we have Killester. Killester is another area in North Dublin. This time it's in D5. So a little bit more north, but quite still hugging the coast quite well. Slightly inland a bit. And it's near an area called Killester, which is part of Dublin, but it's very much a small suburb, which is not too much going on in it. But Artane is also another area near here, which was known for basically having 36,000 people, so quite a big area, but also a nightclub disaster occurred here in the Stardust where 48 people lost their lives. So it's a very tragic spot for that reason. So that's obviously why it gets its namesake, or it's basically most of its importance and relevance today. So it's still known for that. It's just this area right by the sea, nearly, well, actually slightly inland, but still, it's quite a very populated area, very dense area of Dublin, and a very standard looking stop, to be honest. Really similar to, say, like the likes of Glengarry, or just even like Shankill. That sort of bare look to it, bare quality, and obviously it's just very functional, and not much else going on there. Next we have Harmonstown. Honestly, never even heard of Harmonstown before. If you were to say like, oh, what's in Harmonstown, I wouldn't know. It looks like a wooded area, just like Glengarry, really. Also near Artane, but also Raheny. Raheny is an area in Dublin near Howth, and it's got a population of 18,000 people. Also near the sea, also probably much more near to the sea than say the other place. Clontarf has an island here as well, which I'm trying to remember what the name of that island is. Oh, the North Bull Island, which I think has a golf course on it. So I'm very limited knowledge. The only knowledge I can really, put to you here is that basically if you're flying in from, say, Dublin Airport, you will fly over this area. You'll get a nice view of this area. You won't get to see too much else apart from, because, Dublin Airport quite near North Dublin. So you will get a good view of this place, which is quite nice to look at and quite interesting because it's not something to look at every day. Right. Next up we have Raheny. Raheny we just noted on. we've already said it's kind of near the sea. This is a slightly nicer station. Looks quite clean, looks quite nice. Maybe it's just a picture, but again, very natural. A lot of these stations in the north, they haven't bothered with the sort of big bridges or the extravagant roofs, but they've just opted for the basic but simple but nice sort of wildlife mixed with small station houses. So we've already touched on Raheny. Let's move on. Kilbarrack, another one. Really is. Sorry to say this, but yeah, I just don't know much about these places. I really don't. Serving similar sort of suburbs, but basically it covers the similar suburbs apart from Donamead, which is I think a little bit more north, featuring Holy Trinity Parish. Honestly, I was trying to think of Donabate when I think of Donamead, but it's obviously a different place. So again, I really wouldn't want to talk about it because I just don't have enough to say about it. Not too famous in terms of a nationwide as part of Ireland, but maybe for North Dublin, you'd be more familiar with these areas just because their proximity to them, and also you'd hear the name pop up a bit more. Howth Junction and Donamead is the next one up, and the reason this came to fame recently was for very bad reasons. Someone was pushed onto the train track, I believe, here, so that's brought a bad name to it. The other thing about Howth Junction is it's a junction for a reason. It leads off to two distinct sections, one going to Howth and one going to Malahide. So, yeah, 3 youths arrested over violence disorder at the place. Knocked a teen girl under a train. So it's pretty crazy there, to be honest. But yeah, so Howth Junction, nice spot. Well, not really. A major spot. 4 platforms, which lead off two different directions. So, I mean, quite nice little modern-ish bridge going over. Quite major, quite big. Obviously to service people. So, there's another one. Now we have the north of Howth Junction and the northeast of Howth Junction. So we're going to cover the north of Howth Junction first. We have Clon Griffin. Clon Griffin, this has got a really nice little roof to it. It serves the area of the Clon Griffin, which is looking like a very standard new Irish suburb housing estate is what it's called here. It's literally called housing estate, but basically it's quite inland, so there's not too much going on to it. But the one thing I would say about this is modern, new, very new. Like compared to a lot of the other places, it's very much into the modern day. But there's seemingly a lot less to do here because it looks like quite a vast plain of just fields and houses. So I would slightly say this is a bit depressing, but again, I've never been here. If you're from Clongriffin, prove me wrong. Say, there's cool stuff going on here. But historically, there's been not much there. Maybe a little bit of very historical stuff going on here. But modern day, it's mainly just a place to sleep and hang, I guess, stay for a bit. But I will say there is a Father Collins Park here, which won an Architecture Awards at Fair Play for its self-sustainability. But yeah, you're not going to find too much major stuff here, in my opinion. Next up, we have Portmarnock. Portmarnock is very famous, mainly due to its beaches. It's got a really nice golf course, I believe. Yeah, I think it's a nice spot, in my limited knowledge. It's probably the most famous, one of the top 3 most famous spots in the north of Dublin in terms of this area. Not 1 but 2 golf courses, an inland residence estates, and also a lovely beach here. So I guess during the summer this place is going to be black with people. Yeah, it is an incredible beach, I will be honest, and the golf course looks onto it. One of the places I really want to go to, but in terms of amount of people here, there's a lot of people here. So you might be just like Greystones, you might be not stuck, but going, This would be honestly like Dundee to the north, where it's quite a touristy spot, and it probably would bring in around about the same amount of people, if not more. So around about 20,000 people live here. You're talking similar numbers to Dundee / Greystones, maybe even slightly less. But yeah, the little Martello Tower here, I believe it's called, that's also really pretty, and a good few of those dotted around the Dublin coast and also Ireland. Okay, lose my stuff again. Malahide, the final stop, the most northerly stop on the Dart, and Malahide is really, really famous. I think it's the highest per capita wages in Ireland, which I believe 76,000 people. I know this is a few years old, but really high in this area. Like, there's a lot of money in this place, and it's very much looking on the estuary, just north of Dublin, a fair bit outside of Dublin. Only 16,000 people live here, but yeah, there's a lot of money here, and look, I can explain why. It's a very nice area. This is a really nice station with like a nice wide clean station with like a little roof, a traditional-ish roof here. And Malahide is also really famous because it has a castle which is very, very nice. Like a very nice castle, very nice, well-kept area. So honestly, go check it out. Every single picture you look at Malahide is a castle. Maybe one at the beach. But anyways, Malahide, I think, probably quite famous, touristy. And also, you know, its proximity to Dublin, it's going to be popular. Next up, we have the northeast of Howth Junction. We have Bayside. Bayside is basically an island platform accessible by pedestrian subways. It's on that little peninsula between Howth and just before you get to the peninsula. This is Bayside. So it's going to have lovely views. Honestly, I'm looking at the Wikipedia here. Not much else. It says it's in Sutton. There's another stop for Sutton. So we're going to get to Sutton right now, just to explain that. Sutton is right before you get to Howth. I didn't really know this existed until recently, but it is just before you get to Howth, so quite a well-to-do area. There should be something else to say about it. It's in D13. Sutton itself features a population of 5,600 people. Really lowly populated. It's got Borough Beach, which is got these really nice lines over it. You should look it up. It's really quite interesting. A Methodist church, a St. Fintan's church, and yeah, I it's actually one of the places I want to go to, just because I think it looks real pretty. That's simply it. No deeper explanation than that. And yeah, it seems like a chill place. It seems like a nice chill place. So there's Sutton. Recommend. I don't know. Should I check that out? Is that a good recommendation? I think it might be. Last but not least, we have Howth. Howth is right out there on this sort of, how we describe this is basically like an island, but it's actually connected to the mainland. What's that called? Peninsula? No, it's not a peninsula. It's some other word to that. But Howth is, I guess, pretty famous. Howth Head. You can see it quite across the Dublin Bay. What else is there about Howth? Howth is got a lighthouse, I think. A nice little port. It's quite isolated. It's only 8,000 people living here on this small spot, I suppose. It's got a nice little harbour. It's got a little cross. It's got its own little cliff path loop, just like Greystones, and a lighthouse. So, you know what? It seems like a nice chill area, a nice quiet area. It's got a station quite similar to Bray. And that's my list. Anyways, so like there's a lot going on in Ireland. You just need to find it. Dublin, a great place to explore. Great load of things going on here. And yeah, Dart is a great way to explore this stuff in your locality. It's only been around for about 20 years. But yeah, it's definitely seen a lot of like, you know, tourists come into the area, and a lot of people come into living in the Dublin area because it makes travel easier, more accessible. It's a nice, very calm, very chill method of transport. Honestly, one I would definitely recommend. So anyways, that's going to be my list. That's going to be my video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you are inspired to, you know, check out the sites, definitely do. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time.